Happy Saturday, everyone. Oh man, it feels good to be back for a normal Saturday podcast here in the new setup. We were here on Tuesday night just to kind of get a feel for the place and to catch up on a lot of the wrestling news and results and goings-on that I missed during my time off during my move. And now we're back to business here, back on a Saturday with a daytime wingy for you. Now, we did cover a lot on Tuesday already, so this isn't going to be a terribly loaded podcast, but we do have some stuff to discuss. SmackDown last night had some interesting tidbits and possibly a little bit of a look to the future, as well as AEW Dynamite, who had their 6th anniversary this past Wednesday, and they set up a lot of matches coming up for, number one, WrestleDream, and also next week in Daly's Place in Jacksonville as well, and a couple of the interesting stories surrounding that. We'll also preview Crown Jewel and WrestleDream, and we'll talk about John Cena's final dates. 5 dates left, including Crown Jewel. 2 of those dates, well, actually, the other 4 are all appearances. They'll probably be matches, and we'll talk about those and who he might face, and of course, who could possibly face him in his retirement match. And I'm proud to say I will be in attendance for John Cena's second to last appearance and match, and that will be at Survivor Series right here at Petco Park in San Diego coming up in November. So I'm kind of happy that I will get to see Cena during one of his final ever appearances inside of a wrestling ring. Makes me happy. So we'll discuss a little bit of that. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about the ratings and the decline and the dip that both companies seem to be experiencing at the moment. Dynamite this past week drew under 500,000, which is crazy. SmackDown last week just did over 1 million. So we're going to talk about why that might be and some of the changes that Nielsen has recently made that could affect that stuff. But in general, it's just going to kind of be an overall discussion of everything that's been going on since Tuesday. Now, Tuesday we were up here for 2.5 hours, so if you've not seen that stream, go check out that podcast from Tuesday night. We basically just casually caught up on all of the news that I missed because I think we were absent for about 8 or 9 days here on the channel while I was moving. So we kind of caught up on everything on Tuesday, but I still wanted to be here for a Saturday podcast just so we can get back to business. And looking forward to hanging out with you guys this afternoon before I head off to work. So I'm going to say hello to everyone here in the chat, and then we will get going. And I hope you guys are having a great Saturday. Do me a favor, smash Mr. Thumbs Up button. And if you're not a subscriber, please become one. Super chats and memberships are open. I'll answer all the super chats, including this one from my friend Barry in Hawaii. Thanks for the $2. Can we give John Cena another year? This one sucked. I had the same thought just the other night. I was like, what if John Cena, after Saturday night's main event, says, you know what, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mislead everybody, and he almost like asked the fans' permission. Would it be all right if I changed my final match to WrestleMania? Or something like that, and give us like 3 more months just to make up for some of the bullshit we got earlier in the year when he first turned heel and then The Rock kind of disappeared and the whole thing was just a complete mess, and then John Cena turned back into being a babyface in the most lazy way possible. It's almost as if WWE put forth negative effort to try to come up with a story beat to get him back into being a babyface. It was so lazy, and it was so horrible that it's really kind of put a sour taste in my mouth on the whole Cena retirement run. Like, I'm going to be caught up in the emotion and the nostalgia of it all in the last 5 dates like everybody else will, but it's like you kind of wish you had more of this, more of what we're seeing right now. And back in February, I thought John Cena's heel turn could possibly be one of the greatest heel turns in history, and it turned out to be one of the worst. Think about how it started, how high we all were that night. I was like, this is the biggest thing since Hogan. The fact that that fucking sentence came out of my mouth is embarrassing, because at the time you really thought it had a chance to live up to close to what Hogan did if everything was done right. But of course, it was done unbelievably wrong, and it was the biggest waste of time ever. Now John Cena's back being a babyface. He only has 5 dates left, and there's not going to be any time for match building here. He's facing AJ in Crown Jewel. He's going to be facing probably other people in impromptu matches on all those other ones. I don't know how. Well, I guess Survivor Series, they'll have time to build that on Raw. But he might have matches on Raw too. We don't know. But I really wish that we had just a little bit more time left for John Cena, because the level of star Cena was, in terms of being the king of his era, like a Hogan was, like an Austin was, And the fact that his final match is coming on a December Saturday night show on Peacock is just weird. It feels like it should be WrestleMania or SummerSlam or a pay-per-view or PLE dedicated to John Cena, like how I had pitched for December. You Can't See Me, pay-per-view or something like that. So it would be nice if we lived in a world where we could get a little bit more time with John Cena, but it's coming up, and we just have about, a little over 2 months left of John Cena, and it is over. So, yeah, kind of sucks. Let's say hello to people like Melissa, Zane G, Garrett Osborne is here. We got Gilbert Arbalo, Isaac, Mike Rouse, William Cullen, Jacob A, James Kowalski. Good to see you, man. Appreciate the new setup. I actually appreciate the compliments on the new setup. I have a couple things I want to change. I want to lower the belts just a touch, and then these shelves behind me, I'm going to paint brown, and because I definitely don't like the fact that I just put a couple of boards up there, so I'm going to paint those like a dark brown or stain those. Lower the belts a little bit, and then I'm going to LED light the shelves. When I was going back and watching Tuesday's video a little bit just to see how it looked, there's some things behind me I want to change. So I definitely want to darken up the shelves and add some more LED lights, since the ones on the side, the blue ones, you can barely see. And I'm still a little bit playing around with the lighting here, but I pretty much got it. And everything else is dialed in. Internet's great, mic is great, camera's great, setup is great. I don't have any issues with anything, but I kind of just want to change the appearance behind me a little bit, and I'm going to work on that next week. So I'm going to paint those shelves and just change up a few things behind me to make it look a little bit sharper, because I don't like the plain, kind of white look that's behind me. I want some darkness, and I want, maybe a little bit of LED lighting treatment back there as well. So we're working on it, and I am enjoying the space because it's much simpler than my old one, and all my stuff is right here. I just plug it in and I go, instead of, the last house, I had some setup before every stream. I had to switch monitors, switch HDMIs, get my mic set up, move my chair, all that stuff. Here, it's just like plug and play. We're ready to rock, and I'm loving it. So thank you so much for that. Serge is in the house. So is Ricky Zalvadar. Colin Wright, I think I got you. Good to see Steve Jacobson and David Brown. Matt Karcher is here as well. Good to see you. Rodrigo and Barry MK has got 5 more for us. What if you had a gimmick like Bailey, but instead of old characters talking to you, it's old apartments? Ooh, the stories. Because when I was younger, I moved out of my parents' house just a couple of months after I turned 18. As soon as I graduated high school, I was gone. I was already working in restaurants around a lot of people, or I was working in a restaurant and I had a lot of friends in their 20s, and they all lived on their own, and I just felt like that's what you had to do. So the minute I was old enough and I had a job and I had enough money for rent, I moved out. And in the early days, being like 18, 19, 20, all the way through my mid to late 20s, actually, I was moving apartments like every year. I would sign a year lease, the lease would come up, and I'd want to go somewhere else. And I'd just go find another apartment, and I would bounce around. Some of my friends, specifically Daniel and Jason, helped me move so many times, just getting a U-Haul and moving all my shit around, because for some reason, I couldn't stay put. That's why I don't own a house, is because I've lived in Michigan, North Carolina, California. I tend to move around and stuff, so I don't want to commit myself anywhere. And so now I'm to the point where I'm like, okay, in a few years, Elizabeth and I will probably finally buy a place and chill. But, up until this point, I've always enjoyed moving around a lot. And a lot of the apartments and condos I lived in as a young fella, the stories I could tell you, the parties I had in those places, the wrestling I watched in those places, oh my God. So yeah, if I had a gimmick like Bailey and all of my old apartments were talking to me, holy shit, all the girlfriends that would come up, everything. Every drunken night over the toilet, every pay-per-view, everything I did in all of those places, if they were talking to me in my head, that would probably make for a pretty interesting live stream. Yeah. So anyway, if I ever go schizo or something, we'll come up and do a live stream, and you guys can just watch me go nuts. I'll keep you in mind for that, Barry. Thank you for the 5. Colin Wright, how does this sound? Tony loses her ID again and says F it and joins the Death Riders. Tony Storm, you mean? I don't know. I can't see, at some point you feel like that timeless Tony Storm gimmick is going to have to run its course, but maybe not. If it does or if it doesn't, either way, I don't think it's time to end that yet. I think that Tony is arguably the most over wrestler in the world. I mean, that includes both companies. Tony is up there in terms of her performance, her ability, her character, and, her ring work, plus how the fans love her. She's on top, if you ask me. A lot of good women in the biz right now, especially the ones carrying championship belts. Doug Unfunny, good to see you. Ajax Johnson, Joe Brill, and everyone else chiming in. Thanks for being here. Probably not going to be a huge audience on this Saturday afternoon because we don't have a ton to talk about, but we're going to get into some stuff. And I can't wait to talk about the Andrade nonsense and all that because Andrade is back, of course, in AEW, and we'll talk about it all here today. Here's what we have planned for this week. Tomorrow, we are back for our classic Sunday watch-alongs. I forgot to put the thumbnail up here. I actually wanted to. Let me find it. But tomorrow night, we're going to be watching because you guys chose No Mercy. 1999, we're going to be watching that tomorrow evening. I put up a YouTube post earlier in the week just letting you guys know that we will be here for a watch-along and for you to help me decide which one we watch. And when I looked down in the comments, 4 or 5 people mentioned No Mercy 1999, and that's all it took for me. Done. No Mercy 1999 it is. So the link is already up on the channel, and you guys can save that for tomorrow. We will be live at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific to travel all the way back 26 years ago to watch No Mercy 1999. I remember watching this in yet another apartment. This was right after the big flood in North Carolina. We had a couple of hurricanes, and there was a big flood. The whole town flooded. We were out of power for weeks. I was stranded in the second floor of my apartment with the first floor completely flooded, living off granola bars and a Gatorade and a battery-powered radio. It was fucking nuts. And right after that, I moved into a house with one of my, kind of an acquaintance, a friend of a friend, and I had hung out with her too. And we lived together in this 2-bedroom house, and she went out of town, and her brother was staying there. Just for like the weekend or whatever. And she was gone, and I came home from work, or I think that afternoon or something. I'm like, hey, the pay-per-view's on tonight. And this non-wrestling fan, I don't even remember his name, sat there and watched the whole thing with me, and he was blown away by the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian match. And that was kind of the beginning of it. That was like the first ladder match before they started getting nuts, before they started adding tables and chairs and TLCs and all of that stuff. This is kind of where it all started. Hardy Boys had just shed the kind of the Young Bucks type of look and got away from Michael Hayes, I think, and really starting to come into their own. And that was a big match that started that entire legacy that is still ongoing to this day as the Hardys and Dudleys are going to be facing each other at Bound for Glory in a week or so, or whenever the hell that is. So, yeah, No Mercy 1999. We're going to be here to watch that. Monday night, Raw. We might do a Raw review. We probably will on Monday night because I'm wondering if they're going to add Braun Breaker versus Roman Reigns to Crown Jewel. Right now, we still only have 4 matches. Roman Reigns is on the promotional material for Crown Jewel, plus he returned last Monday, really focused his attack on Braun Breaker. So I'm thinking on Monday we're going to get that match added as well. And if we do, for a 5-match card, Crown Jewel doesn't look terribly bad. So we might be up here on Monday, unless Raw completely sucks. I mean, if it sucks, I don't even know if I'm going to bother, because I think we're going to be here on Tuesday. So if you don't hear from me on Monday, we're going to be here on Tuesday for sure, because we have a head-to-head matchup between NXT, which is doing their NXT and TNA showdown, not invasion, showdown, and that's going to be going head-to-head with AEW Dynamite Title Tuesday. Now, I'm not too concerned with who wins the ratings here because Dynamite is leaving their night. I don't think they're going to beat NXT in the ratings, but they're probably going to put a hit on their number. And those shows are going to be going head-to-head. So we're going to do, I think, a watch-along of probably Dynamite with a smaller screen of NXT and TNA so we can monitor that too. I think that's what we're going to try to do on Tuesday night, try to do a double watch-along. We wanted to do one for All Out and WrestlePalooza, but then Tony Khan changed the time, and we couldn't do that. So maybe we'll give it another shot on Tuesday, or we will give it another shot on Tuesday. We'll be here to watch the Showdown or the Invasion, and we'll also watch Title Tuesday for AEW, and we do have a couple of good matches set for that as well, which we will talk about later. So keep that in mind for the next couple of days. No Mercy watch-along tomorrow, maybe a Raw review on Monday, and then we're going to do a double watch-along and probably review of AEW and NXT on Tuesday. So just keep that in mind. All right, so I think the first thing on my list this week is not news. Normally we open up with news, but I don't have a ton of news. I only have one thing I want to discuss in a little while, and we'll bring that up. And if there's any other news stories you want me to touch on, just let me know. But as I was kind of reading through things, nothing was really sticking out to me or standing out as something that I really need to address or talk about. So if there's anything you'd like my opinion on, just let me know there in the chat. It's a little bit hard to get centered here, but yeah, I think we're good. All right, so let's talk about last night's SmackDown first. So SmackDown was a little bit interesting last night because, of course, they're setting up and hyping up the Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes match at Crown Jewel, which I'm very, very interested in because I've been waiting for this one for quite a while. I've talked about this match for quite a while over the past few years, and I've been adamant and very, very repetitive in what I say. And I've said over and over and over and over again that when these guys get in the ring again, that Rollins absolutely has to win this one because he went above and beyond for Cody Rhodes in 2022, putting him over 3 times, including that Hell in a Cell when Corey tore his titty off, his bone, and he still lost to him. So I always thought these two guys would meet back up one day when Cody was champion and Rollins would beat him for the title. I kind of had it right. Rollins and Cody are both champions, and yes, there is a championship on the line, but it's that absolutely worthless, who gives a shit, green Crown Jewel championship. I don't care about that at all, but I do care about the match, and I like the story they were telling last night on SmackDown, especially with Cody kind of being in Seth Rollins' head, and then everything they set up with Randy Orton. And I'm still of the belief that Seth Rollins absolutely will beat Cody Rhodes at Crown Jewel in that match, and he might even have help from Randy Orton. So last night on SmackDown, Cody Rhodes opened up the show, says a few things. Out comes Heyman with the Vision, and Randy Orton shows up there to immediately back up Cody, and Heyman begins stirring the pot between Cody and Randy Orton, and the two of them have a tag team main event against the Bronze later on in the night, and Heyman basically guarantees that they're going to lose to the Bronze because he says the things between the two of them cannot last. And that's not a spoiler, that's a prophecy. So Heyman is basically guaranteeing that Cody and Randy Orton's friendship here is not going to be able to last. But we've been waiting for this for quite a while. Cody and Randy did have their match at didn't they? They faced, right, for the title, or they faced, and Cody's beaten them, but it was more mutual, right? They haven't had a feud. I think it's just been a match so far, right? When did that even happen? I don't remember happening, but I feel like Cody and Randy have wrestled. So at some point we were wondering if we were going to get a Randy Orton turn, and they can build a program with these two. Well, this is your opportunity right here. Because if we're going to fast forward all the way to the main event, but before we do, WWE was really kind of leaning into this too. There was that backstage segment where Cody and Randy are in the locker room, and Cody says, "You know I've got your back." And Orton says something like, "Right back at you, Code Man." Code Man. Code Man. So great. Love the Code Man. That made me chuckle. So, you can kind of tell if you're reading between the lines here, something's up with Orton. He might have heard Heyman's words, and then you fast forward to the main event, and it's the Vision versus Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes. Cody winds up getting absolutely annihilated through the barricade by Braun Breaker, leaving Randy Orton and Bronson Reed in the ring alone. Now, Randy, I think, has got Bronson. He hits him with his vintage DDT, right? And then Randy's getting into position for the RKO. And you know how he likes to hit the mat and bang his fists. Well, while he's on the mat, in comes Seth Rollins and nails Randy Orton with a stomp, allowing Bronson Reed to climb to the top and hit a tsunami on Randy Orton and get the win. So the Bronze did win, and they won with help from Seth Rollins. So now Cody and Randy are in the ring laying. The Vision is walking away, looking at the accomplishment, laughing. And Rollins kind of wants to go back. He's looking at Cody. He kind of wants to go back and get him a piece of Cody. And Heyman is saying, "Don't do it. Don't do it." But they're trying to tell this story of Cody living inside the head of Seth Rollins. Rollins, knows that he hasn't been able to beat Cody. Cody threw that in his face in the promo a week or so ago. And this is really bugging and bothering Rollins. So he wants to go in there and get him a piece of Cody. Heyman is advising against it, but Rollins does anyway. And as soon as he slides in the ring and goes for the stomp, Cody moves out of the way, grabs Rollins into a crossroads, and nails him. And Rollins sold it beautifully. And I loved that. I loved that because this is all going to lead to Rollins getting that win. This is all going to lead to Rollins getting that win off his back and that monkey off his back. So he can focus his sights on the Vision, and this will, pause the Cody and Seth stuff until they meet again down the road. So it feels like they're teasing the eventual turn of Randy Orton on Cody Rhodes. They teased that pretty hard last night. So on one hand, I would think that it's very predictable for Randy Orton to turn on Cody and help Seth Rollins win at Crown Jewel, but I actually kind of hope that happens. I think that's the appropriate type of finish to do. WWE is really, really telegraphing this. It feels like a lot of people are sniffing this out pretty easily. It's not like they're being subtle about it at all. So I feel like that's probably going to be what's going to happen. It might not be a full-blown Randy turn. It might be Randy coming out attempting to help Cody Rhodes and then fucking up. And then Rollins gets the win. Either way, Rollins is winning that green, ugly belt. 100% he's winning that. Whether it's due to a turn from Randy Orton or an accidental turn, because Randy, I don't think he's going to just turn around, turn heel, and then help the Vision. I feel like he might screw up. Cody might blame him. There might be some arguing or whatnot, and then you get the turn after the fact, or you get the full-blown turn after the match. When Cody is blaming Randy Orton and then he RKO's Cody right there and beats him senseless. Or you could even go one better. You could do the turn on Friday night. Friday night's SmackDown next week is going to be in Perth. So the same venue that's hosting Crown Jewel is going to be hosting SmackDown. And there's a couple of big matches set for that we'll talk about in a minute. But you could do a Randy Orton heel turn right there. And then he could come out and actually help the Vision. So you don't necessarily have to do the heel turn at Crown Jewel. You could do it on SmackDown and then have Randy come out there and help. But I don't know. I feel like either way, Rollins is walking out of Crown Jewel victorious, and it will probably be with an assist, whether it be intentional or unintentional assist from Randy Orton. That's the way I feel like this is going to go based on everything we saw last night. So we will see. And if that does happen, then we're looking at a Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton program that might take us into Survivor Series. I don't know, how much they're going to stack this War Games match. Obviously, it's going to be the Vision, but the Vision's going to need, it might be the Vision and Randy Orton, against Cody and, I don't know, Cena. And what are they going to do? Is Cena going to work one-on-one, or is Cena going to work War Games? Cena's never worked a War Games match, right? I don't think. So Cena, in his second to last appearance ever, is going to work his first War Games match. I'd almost rather see Cena in a one-on-one match at Survivor Series against somebody. I don't know. So lay out your ideas for Survivor Series in terms of the Vision, because it's got to be them in the War Games match. But right now it's only 3 guys. So I feel like it might be Brock. It might be Brock and Randy. Think about that team. Seth, Brock, Randy, and the Bronze versus Roman, Cody, Cena, and who else, man? We don't know where Gunther is right now. He's not back. Who's the other big baby faces? Sammy, maybe? Who are the other baby faces that could go in there? Or you wait. You don't turn Randy Orton heel. You do it in War Games. Maybe you do it in War Games. You don't do it here at in Perth. But I feel like in order for Rollins to beat Cody, he's going to have a little bit of help. Obviously, he's going to have the Bronsons or the Bronze out there. That's why I think the Randy Orton assist could be unintentional. Could be the Bronze running out there. Of course, Seth's going to have a lot of help in that match. Orton comes out there to even the odds at Crown Jewel and then does something to cost Cody. It could be something like that. So not sure how it's going to all shake out for the pay-per-view and Survivor Series and coming up in the end of the year, but Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes seem to be headed towards a program, finally. We've been kind of waiting for it, so that's what they do. I'm fine with it. It's a good time of year to do a program like that. Also, last night on SmackDown, I think the highlight of the show every week has been the United States Open Challenge. Now, last week, I think it was Javon Evans, right? This week, Sammy is out there for another Open Challenge. And Carmelo Hayes comes out to accept, but he's attacked from behind in the aisleway by The Miz, who then hits the skull-crushing finale on Melo. But instead of The Miz taking Melo's spot and then walking to the ring to challenge Sami Zayn, he's kind of being led away by officials and agents and stuff, and then out comes Aleister Black. Aleister Black comes out to answer the challenge. So that's kind of a cool match. Sami Zayn versus Aleister Black. Pretty good match, too, that I enjoyed. Now, Sami Zayn would retain here when Damian Priest came out to distract Aleister Black. I think he's got Sami set up he's in the corner, getting Sami set up to hit him with a black mass or something. Out comes Damian Priest. It's just enough to distract Aleister, and then in comes Sami with a haluva kick, nails him, puts him down, and gets the win. And then after the match, Damian Priest puts Aleister Black through a table with the Razor's Edge. And later on, a couple of segments later, Priest is backstage being interviewed. I think it's Kathy, and he's doing this thing with one of the Pretty Deadly guys, Kit Wilson, right? Who's like in the wheelchair, and he's been kind of assaulting him every week. And so last night he takes him and he just rolls him away in the wheelchair while he continues his interview with Kathy. And in the background, you can hear pipes smashing and things crashing and everything. Pretty funny. And that's when Priest challenged Aleister Black to a last man standing match next week on SmackDown in Australia. So that's going to be a big one for next week. Priest and Black, last man standing. Kind of an interesting match there. Here's another interesting match that we had last night. Chelsea Green and Melba Toast, or Alba Fire, or whatever her name is. They took on a couple of NXT women. Sol Ruca and Zarya. Now, Sol Ruca is the North American champion and the Speed champion. Why did I think that they got rid of the Speed title? Where did I read that? Or did we hear about it and then it turned out not to be true? I would have sworn that I heard something about WWE just dropping Speed. I've never even watched a single Speed match ever for the men or the women. But Sol Ruca and Zarya are out there. It didn't feel like this was a call-up. They're doing things a little bit differently this time around. You know, with some of these call-ups, we've seen Javon Evans now on the show a couple of times. And you know, now they're bringing up Sol Ruca and Zarya. I don't think that's going to be a permanent call-up. They're just kind of maybe up here testing them, giving them a feel, dipping their toes in the water for the call-ups that we know we will eventually get. I mean, Sol Ruca is the future. So it was really cool to see them come out. They're kind of a fun, odd couple in NXT, and they're awesome. And this was kind of set up backstage. Chelsea tried to recruit Sol Ruca and Zarya, and then Aldis kind of just made the tag match for later. So you get a Soul Snatcher to Chelsea Green for the win. That move is spectacular, and big win for the NXT stars, and it's only a matter of time before they are on the main roster permanently, especially that Sol Ruca, whose praises I've been singing ever since I first laid eyes on her as a recruit. You know, she was just she wasn't really featured on TV yet. And I was like, oh my God, keep an eye on her. She's going to be, you think Charlotte was good. I think Charlotte you're going to see a lot better in Sol Ruca. And then she got injured and she was out for that long period of time with the knee thing. Now she's back. Now she's been featured more on NXT lately. She's won championships, and she's a pretty well-known and liked star over there. And it's only a matter of time before she makes it to the main roster because she is incredible. So is Zarya, and it was cool to see them get called up. They kept the Tiffany Stratton and Stephanie Vicaire contract signing really short and sweet. They just basically signed the deal and then posed for the camera, and then they were interrupted in the aisleway by Julia and Kiana James. So, or I guess it was Tiffany leaving. Like, she's doing the thing, you know, you never want to leave the ring walking backwards. Whenever you're walking backwards, you're going to get attacked. So watching Tiffany do this, I'm like, who's coming? And it was Julia. Julia attacked Tiffany, and then Kiana James gets on the mic and offers Stephanie Vicaire a chance to join her organization, and she'll guarantee that she wins a crown jewel or whatever she proposed here to Stephanie. And Stephanie basically said no. Tiffany then hits the ring and takes Kiana and Julia out. And now there is a tag match set for next week in Perth as well, which you could see coming a mile away. Stephanie Vicaire, Tiffany Stratton taking on Julia and Kiana James. That will be on the Perth SmackDown as well. Now, you know, it's going to be the can they coexist thing. Tiffany and Stephanie seem to be getting along just fine, but I guess this will probably be to add a little bit of heat to their match. And like I said last week, and I've been saying since these matches were made, I'm very much looking forward to Cody and Seth and Tiffany and Stephanie while also understanding that, at least with me personally, both matches are pretty predictable. And it's a good I like to acknowledge this when it happens because it shows you that predictability isn't always bad. I still find these matches interesting because Stephanie Vaquer and Tiffany is a match we haven't gotten, and I've been waiting for Cody and Seth for a long time. So even though they're both relatively predictable and they're both for championships I don't give a shit about, I'm still interested. And so that's good. That's good for WWE that I care, about these matches because WrestlePalooza sucked. And I think that Crown Jewel is going to shape up to be a much, much better show based on how it looks right now. So I think Tiffany and Stephanie is going to be fun. And that's the name of the game. I want that match to be fun. And I feel like Stephanie Vaquer will get the win. One thing I didn't mention earlier when we were talking about our plans for this week was Crown Jewel predictions. I'm not sure when I'm going to squeeze those in. Maybe even today, because I already know who's going to win these matches, most of these matches, and I think there's still one that's yet to be announced. So I'll give you some half-assed predictions here in a little while, and then maybe I'll release my predictions in a YouTube short, because I don't think I need to come up here and talk for an hour about these matches. They're all pretty predictable to me, so I will give you official predictions at some point, but today you'll get some soft predictions. We mentioned Javon Evans earlier on. I just think this kid, he lights up the room. He's got a smile that lights up a room. He really does. I love his energy. I think he's exactly what's good about pro wrestling right now. The fans really like him. He's got great energy. He's a great athlete. And you can just see big things in him, But, I also saw big things in Montez Ford, and he hasn't done shit. So when it comes to these tall, athletic, lanky guys like Montez and Javon, who are, you have Aleister Black too, but they don't have he doesn't have the athleticism that these guys do. And I just smile when I see this kid. Like his matches in NXT have been amazing. I've seen some of the crazy bumps that he's been taking. He's got a big match coming up at Bound for Glory against an equally lovable Leon Slater, who is another just fantastic kid. And as somebody who's, I'm an old man now. I'm going to be 50 years old in a couple of years. I like to see the energy and the smiles on these kids' faces. And Javon is one of the talents that makes me smile the most. I really, really like him. So he teamed up last night with Rey Fenix. So yet another tag team partner for Rey Fenix. He's teamed up with a lot of guys. There's another guy in WWE that I think would make a good partner for Phoenix. I forget his name. I read somewhere on the worldwide interweb on AOL Online that Phoenix and this other guy, I think he works on the Raw brand, they might be related in some way. I think he would be a good partner for him too. When I was doing research and reading through all my wrestling magazines, it looks like the two of them have actually teamed up before in other wrestling promotions around the world, and I was really surprised to see that. So if WWE is unaware of the history between Rey Fenix and that guy Penta over on Raw, they should maybe think about putting them together as a tag team, because I've heard through the grapevine they have a history together. It's true. I heard it. I wouldn't lie to you guys. Like, I think they've teamed before. And I don't know if they're like real-life brothers, the way Hulk Hogan and Brutus Beefcake were real-life brothers, but that's the rumor. That's what they say at the lunchroom table, at school. These two guys Phoenix and Penta are brothers. So, okay, if they are, you should team them up. So, anyway, stay tuned to Good Mike More Commentaries for more, lesser-known information like that. I'm happy to educate you guys. So, Phoenix and Javon Evans are teaming up. They defeated Los Garza last night, and just a fun match. Now, Javon, this is his second or third appearance on SmackDown? Maybe even fourth. I've lost track. I know he had the U.S. title match with Sammy, now here, and I feel like he had one other appearance as well. So, again, he's another one that we could see a call-up soon. Also, Obafemi. Now, it's been reported that Obafemi they are planning to keep Obafemi in NXT for the foreseeable future, but I doubt that report. He took a clean loss to Ricky Saints. He's probably going to have a rematch of some kind with Ricky Saints, probably with a stip. That's usually how they do things. Saints will get will retain, and then after that, Obafemi comes up. So these reports that Oba isn't going anywhere, I don't believe, because Sol Ruca, Zarya, and Javon Evans were on the show last night. So if you're bringing them up, why not Obafemi, especially after he lost and dropped the NXT championship? So I think Obafemi is another guy that we're going to see real soon. And when you see all of these appearances from the NXT stars on the main roster, it doesn't look like we're going to get that draft. How long have we been talking about that draft now? For a year? I'm giving up on the draft. I don't want a draft. We've talked about how stupid it is. It doesn't make any sense to do a draft. You've got Adam Pearce. You've got Nick Aldis. You have storyline ways to get people to get called up. Just run a little angle on TV where it's Shawn Michaels, Aldis, and Pearce, and they're behind a closed door. And when they when they come out from these doors and they come out from the room, they've made deals for certain NXT talent to be moved to certain rosters. That's all you need to do. You don't need to do a silly fucking draft. And the way they're bringing these NXT talents to TV, to the main roster to make appearances, I guess they're going to kind of just do it this way. And I'm not in as much of a hurry to see Sol Ruca and Zarya join the main roster as I am maybe an Obafemi or maybe even a Javon Evans. I think they're both ready to rock. So Sol Ruca and Zarya, they can hang in NXT a little while longer till they wrap up their business with the championship belts and whatnot and then come to the main roster. But also, guys like Javon, he brings too much to the table. He's too beloved of an athlete to really have him treading water in NXT. Bring him up now. Let's do it now. So good to see him last night on SmackDown. That was great. We also had another one of those Solo Sikoa vignettes where every week he's hyping up another member of his MFTs. So this week it was time to reintroduce Tala Tonga to all of us and keeps referencing that there is a piece missing and that once the missing piece is found, everyone in the group will be better off. I don't know what that means. I don't know what he's referring to there. Some people think it might be related to The Rock. I don't. Unless Roman is going to go back to being a heel and recreate the bloodline stuff again, I don't think they need to do that, but they might. So not really sure what Solo is referencing here or if there is going to be some big reveal coming up in the future. If there is, let me know what you think in the chat about that. But that pretty much takes care of everyone in the MFTs. We've gotten a little vignette for all of them now. So what's it going to be? Back to TV, back in matches? Or is this leading to some sort of big reveal of some kind? And next week, maybe on SmackDown, we will have to see. And that, of course, left us with the main event, which we already talked about. And the show ending with Seth Rollins eating that Crossroads. And I think that's just going to mean that he's going to be winning at Crown Jewel. So here's what we have right now for Crown Jewel. It is Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins, Stephanie Vaquer versus Tiffany Stratton, Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. They're going to be taking on the Kabukis in a tag team match. And, of course, John Cena and AJ Styles. Now, that's only 4 matches. I feel like on Monday night, we're going to get the addition of Braun Breaker and Roman Reigns because Roman Reigns came back last week, and he focused his attack on Braun Breaker. So why would they not book that match? You telling me we're going to have a 4-match card here? Or is there a 5th match or 6th match I'm forgetting or not knowing about or what? But it feels like it's got to be Roman and Breaker. And that could lead to how they do the finish in Cody and Seth, because I feel like Cody and Seth will be the main event. Maybe it might be John Cena and AJ Styles, actually. But Roman versus Braun Breaker, if it happens at Crown Jewel, we know that it will open the show because Roman either closes or opens and he doesn't do anything else. So that's probably going to be that's probably going to open the show. Let's say Roman, and I've already pitched this. I already went through this whole pitch of this. Hypothetically, if this match happens, Roman wins here, Braun wins down the line, maybe at WrestleMania. And fans don't want to hear that. Breaker should win. No, Breaker shouldn't. He can lose here in Perth. Have him win the bigger one later. Maybe even if there's a championship on the line. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I thought would be best going into WrestleMania if Roman, isn't going to be involved in the title picture, or he's not going to get the title back, at least for the next few months, then just book the rematch. With Roman and Braun Breaker at WrestleMania. You can make it for a title or something, and that's where Breaker gets his win. He puts down Roman at WrestleMania, maybe even with the championship on the line. And like what I said earlier, if Seth is able to survive all this shit, that would make the dynamic between him and Breaker pretty interesting, because if Breaker were to face Roman at Crown Jewel and beat him, Seth I have pegged to win as well, but let's say Seth lost and Breaker won. And Breaker has now beaten Roman Reigns. He's beaten the most dominant star WWE has had in quite some time. He is not going to be able to remain second fiddle to Seth after a victory like that. his confidence is going to be running so high, and he's not going to want to wait for his turn anymore. He's going to want his opportunity now. And so I think losing is better for the longevity of the vision. Losing here would be better. Winning later is where you want to do it. So if that match happens, I feel like Roman Reigns would win. And let's say Roman is on Raw on Monday. They set up the match, and let's say Breakker gets the best of him. There's another brawl. Breakker takes him out and gets the last word. Now we've got the match set for Crown Jewel. That opens the show, and Roman Reigns completely annihilates Braun Breakker. Doesn't squash him or anything. It's a great match, but he winds up beating Breakker. You can have Bronson Reed interfere. You can have the Usos interfere. It doesn't have to be squeaky clean. You can have all sorts of interference out there. But at the end of the day, have Roman get the win, and maybe Roman and the Usos take out the Vision in that match. Breakker is now speared through a barricade, or Bronson Reed has been taken out by the Usos, or something happens to where they are just unable to be a factor in the Rollins and Cody match, and that's where you have Randy Orton come in. So that could all play up to the Randy Orton getting involved in the Rollins and Cody match. You can have Roman and possibly the Usos taking out Breakker and Reed. So we'll see if that happens or not. And that's the 5 matches we have. Now, speaking of John Cena and all of his final matches, so we have 5 more dates left for John Cena. Very sad. 5 more dates. So we have Crown Jewel coming up next Saturday, 1 week from today on October 11th. Then we don't see John Cena for another month. So John Cena, is he going to beat AJ? Is he going to lose to AJ? I feel like he's winning one, losing one, winning one, losing one. So he lost to Cody at SummerSlam, then he beat Logan Paul, then he lost to Brock. Maybe he's going to beat AJ here. And then we don't see him for another month. We don't see him again until the November 10th Monday Night Raw in Boston. So that's going to be Cena's final appearance in Boston. We're also going to see him the following week on Raw in Madison Square Garden. So after Crown Jewel, it's November 10th Raw in Boston, November 17th Raw in MSG. Those are either going to be used to build whatever he's going to do at Survivor Series, or we get a couple of impromptu matches. And I'm kind of hoping we get impromptu matches on both shows. I think that would be really special for Cena to have a final match in Boston. Because if it's just an appearance, then he's just out there for a promo. He should try to have a final match in Boston. He should also try to have a final match in Madison Square Garden the following week. So if they were to do that, and I hope they do, who do you think those opponents would be? And what would he do at his appearance after that, which would be November 29th, Survivor Series here in San Diego at Petco Park? Is Cena going to be in another one-on-one match on his retirement tour, or is he going to be in the War Games? I feel like he's going to be in War Games. Might be him and Roman and Cody and whatever against the Vision and somebody else. I don't know how that's going to work, but I feel like I'd almost prefer him to be in a one-on-one match. And then after that, it's just 2 weeks later. It's 2 weeks later in D.C. So whatever they do at Survivor Series, or whatever they do in those 2 Raws leading up to Survivor Series, I feel like that's got to at least plant some sort of a seed for December 13th. Does WWE know yet who his final opponent is going to be? Have they even decided that? Has Cena given any input on that? I've given mine. At this point, given what's left, I feel like there's really 2 good possibilities here. Number 1, Gunther. I've been preaching that for a while because I think it would be fun if Gunther retired a bunch of dudes. And he retired Goldberg, one of the greatest of all time, in July, turns around and retires the greatest of all time, John Cena, in December. AJ Styles is on the verge of retirement in a few months. He's probably going to retire at WrestleMania next year. Have Gunther face him as well. And then if you really want to get cute, when Sheamus decides to hang it up, which might not be far off, have Gunther retire him too. It's Randy Orton's Legend Killer gimmick, but with retirements. I love that idea. So Gunther is the top of my list, but Gunther's not even back yet. He's still on sabbatical, on vacation, whatever. So we don't know if we're going to see him back for Survivor Series or if he's going to get involved in whatever's going on with the Vision. We don't know because, he's going to have championship aspirations, and that's Seth's title, and maybe Gunther goes babyface or something. We don't know. But I'm really hoping specifically on November 10th and November 17th, Boston and MSG, we get matches. Now, who would those matches be against? They're both on Raw, so if there's some sort of an impromptu match or something, I don't even know who it would be. You have another AJ one or maybe a match with Rollins? I could see that. I could see Cena and Rollins one more time. That would be a fun Madison Square Garden show. Maybe John Cena gets a title match. Maybe John Cena gets a title match in Madison Square Garden on November 17th against Seth Rollins. And he falls short or something, and then that takes you into Survivor Series, and then we've got Saturday night's main event. But for Saturday night's main event, I would vote either Gunther or Roman. I know it doesn't sound great, but I feel like Roman would make a lot of sense. He did sort of retire The Undertaker, but not really. And this would be one final match. This could kind of like make good on the Undertaker match, which was a terrible match. Fans hated Roman Reigns back then. They didn't like the idea of him beating Undertaker for the last time, but this is a different Roman with a different legacy, and having John Cena's final match, under your belt seems appropriate for a guy like Roman. So Gunther or Roman right now for Cena's final match, I can't think of really any better options. You can think of other options, sure. Oh yeah, Obafemi. No, I'm sorry. I just don't want to see that. I just don't want to see John Cena versus Obafemi. But it's a possibility. I mean, talk about a way to smash a guy over. I mean, I think Obafemi is going to be the next big thing, but you can accomplish the same thing just by having Obafemi beat Brock Lesnar. So Obafemi, beating John Cena, I don't know if that would do as much for him as we think, although it would definitely imply that WWE has full faith in this guy, because Obafemi is young, he's still in NXT. To give him the moniker of being the last guy to face John Cena, you have to have serious long-term confidence in this guy if you're going to do something like that. And it just doesn't seem like the way WWE sometimes does things. So that's why I feel like Gunther or Roman, somebody who already has, a legacy in the company, especially Roman's, who's so legendary. It just might be that. I understand. I get the mentality. It should be a young guy and all that. I mean, fans, they instinctively go right to that stuff. It's the same concept with the Royal Rumble. There's some fans that feel like only people who have never won the title before should win the Royal Rumble. I'm like, no. You can have a 10-time champion win the Royal Rumble. It's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think fans get ideas in their head and just don't let go of them. And I'm like, yeah, you don't want your Randy Ortons and your Roman Reigns of the world winning every Royal Rumble, but every few years if one of them wins, who gives a shit? Good. I don't care. I don't need it to be, Javon Evans type guys every fucking time. It doesn't need to be that way. So, and the same goes for retirement matches. I feel like whatever the best match you can do, whatever the most interesting match you can do, or the most appropriate match you can do is what you should do. It doesn't matter if he's faced him before or what. The John Cena's entire run here has been facing guys that he's faced before. So if it turns out to be Roman Reigns, I'm not going to have any complaints. I just think the Gunther idea is fun. And I would do the Gunther thing if I was WWE. So let me know who you think Cena could work with. Sean Spears, okay. No, and Joe Hendry's another one. It was Mark Henry this week, I think, who said that he feels like John Cena's final match should be against Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry is not going to be what people think he's going to be. I like Joe Hendry. I like the gimmick. I like the song. I think it's so incredibly fun. But this guy is not the future of the business. He's not going to be the next top star in the biz. He's just not. It's nothing against Joe Hendry. I like Joe Hendry, and I get a huge kick out of this gimmick. It's fun, just like Javon Evans is fun. Joe Hendry stuff is fun, but I think people are getting caught up in this. We see this sometimes. So some guys get over for weird reasons, like Broken Matt Hardy, and so sometimes you get guys over, Broken Matt, Danhausen, guys like that. And I just don't see WrestleMania main event potential in Joe Hendry. I just don't. Maybe I'm wrong. That would be great. If I'm proven wrong and Joe becomes the face of the whole fucking universe in a couple of years, great. I'll be the first one to say, well, I was wrong about that guy. But I just don't feel it. I don't think Joe Hendry is going to be this level of star that people think he's going to be. He's just got a really, really over gimmick. That's all. I mean, are his matches any good? Are we running Joe Hendry highlight videos showing all of his great moves and shit? He can work and whatnot, but he's very average and run-of-the-mill in that regard. Good athlete, good-looking guy, but there's a lot of good athletes and good-looking guys out there. I'm one of them, and so's Gilbert and Jay Lambo and Rodrigo. We're four hot-looking dudes, but that doesn't mean we should be the face of WWE, especially you, Rodrigo. So I don't know. I don't know what the right answer for John Cena is. I just hope that these final 5 dates give us the most that we can get out of John Cena, because I feel like we wasted a lot of months this year with the pointless heel turn, and everything that he did during that heel turn was such a disappointment. And then even the transition back into a babyface was one of the most lazy things I've ever witnessed in my life from a pro wrestling creative team. That it's kind of made it a failure. And I feel like even with 5 dates, only 5 dates, we can still finish strong here. So that's what I'm hoping for John Cena. And like I said, I'm going to be at Survivor Series, and I'm looking forward to being in the audience and being able to witness the second to last time John Cena gets in the ring. I'm going to feel proud about that, because apparently front row seats for Saturday night's main event are upwards of $11,000 if you want to see John Cena's final match. I'll take my $300 Survivor Series seats instead. Thank you very much. So, yeah, it's getting close, guys. Match with AJ coming up next week, and then it just remains to be seen if those Raw shows are going to be matches or not. If they're not, and they're just going to be used as build for War Games, then we're only talking 3 matches of John Cena's career are left. But I'm hoping, since we got that John Cena and Sammy Open Challenge a couple weeks ago on SmackDown, that they do the same thing on Raw. We get Cena, and maybe he gets confronted in the ring by maybe nobody he has history with, but maybe somebody that fans have talked about. Oh, it'd be cool to see him face him. You guys know better than me. Somebody they could just bring up and give us a match. I don't think it's going to be Adam Copeland, unless John Cena went to management and be like, can you please work something out? Can you call Tony? Can I call him? I'll call Tony. What if I call Tony and beg him? Can I have Adam for a night? I'll give you anything you want. That's not going to happen. So it would be great if we saw Edge come back and have a match, but it's not going to be him. So we'll see. But Raw in Boston and MSG, it would be hard to envision John Cena not having one final match there, especially Boston. Especially Boston. But he might not be booked for a match. It might just be promos. We don't know. Or I don't know. You guys might know. Anyway, speaking of SmackDown and kind of the lackluster nature of the show, like when you watched SmackDown last night, I thought the show was fine. And I've been saying this a lot lately about WWE and AEW. I said this about WrestlePalooza. It was just fine. That's all it was fine. WrestlePalooza got a less than exceptional grade, a C grade. It was just average. It did not deliver on what it promised. And when I've been seeing the TVs and stuff lately, Raw this past week was a good show, but it was just okay. And SmackDown last night was a little bit better than it's been, because I enjoyed seeing some of the things we saw. I enjoyed seeing the NXT people. I enjoyed the dynamic between Rollins and Cody. There was a lot on SmackDown I enjoyed, but when it comes to Raw or SmackDown or Dynamite or Collision for that matter, I am not ending any of these shows thirsting for more. There used to be a time on Monday nights when I was so sad that the show went off the air, because I cannot wait to see how they follow this up. How are they going to follow that up? Holy shit, that was so much fun. I haven't had that feeling in decades. And now when Raw is over, you're not even that enjoying. Just Raw's over now. You're not like, oh man, next week is going to be crazy. After what we just saw in that main event of Raw, I cannot wait until next week, guys. I have not said that ever, I don't think, on this channel. And the same thing goes with SmackDown. And there's a difference between, I saw some debate, and I wasn't even a part of this. I was just scrolling through Twitter last night, and I saw a pretty friendly exchange between a couple of people that I follow debating the how good the show was last night. And the argument that it was good were good arguments. I'm like, yeah, the show was fine. Like, if you like wrestling, you can tune into SmackDown and just enjoy wrestling and then shut it off when it's done. It's, both companies are so desperate to to find that one thing that just kind of hooks fans. And WWE was riding high on in 2 years ago on a lot of that bloodline stuff and some of that cinematic television that we were seeing. All of that is gone now. We're not getting any cinematic shit out of the vision, at least not yet. Maybe when the dynamic between Rollins and Breakker starts to change the way the dynamic between Roman and Jay changed and Jay and Sammy changed and all of those things happening within the faction that really captivated us. They don't really have any of that going on right now in the vision. If anything, they've got Paul Heyman being all over the place. He's dropping Brock Lesnar's name left and right. He's been an oracle, an advocate, a wise man. He's all over the place, and there's none of that there anymore. And then in AEW, you got a fantastic champion in Hangman Page, but you've got no Will Ospreay, you've got no Swerve Strickland, Danielson is on commentary, Kenny was out up until recently, you got a lot of people out, and the show on Wednesday I thought was fine, but nothing is really standing out as terrific, and that's where these ratings come in. And we've been seeing some dips and declines in the ratings a little bit, specifically with SmackDown and with AEW. Now, this past week's Dynamite, which was the 6th anniversary show, drew under $500,000 viewers. Now, that's just cable, so we're not talking about Max here. So for the fans that think only those people are watching Dynamite, you're wrong, but that doesn't mean that this rating isn't low. And it's also low for SmackDown. SmackDown, I don't know if the number for last night is out yet, but last week's was out and it was only 1.2 million. They've had a 40% decrease since leaving Fox. Now, part of that is because they're available in less homes, but also part of that is because they are not on creative fire like they were. Some of that stuff was really excellent television. They could give us a 45-minute segment on SmackDown with the Bloodline that would have us on the edge of their seats and was more entertaining than any match they would do. So that stuff is gone now, and that's affecting them. Another thing that apparently is adversely affecting these ratings are these changes to the Nielsen rating system. So the Nielsen ratings are changing. Now, if you want to know about all of the ins and outs of this, of the details of this, there's an excellent article up on WrestleNomics about it right now. I posted the link in the description down there, so you can click on that and really read what these changes are and what they mean for pro wrestling. But basically the gist of it is that Nielsen has changed how TV ratings are measured. And this new change is starting to show lower numbers for wrestling, but showing higher numbers for other forms of entertainment. And it's just weird why wrestling is being affected this way. So basically what's happening is up until now, the ratings data has been measured with a methodology called automatic content measurement, or ACM. Now there's a new methodology that they're using that's been implemented called Big Data Plus Panel. What does this mean? I have no fucking idea. I don't care about this stuff at all. I don't understand or care how, the Nielsen ratings are tracked or measured or broken down at all, but ratings discourse is always a big part of pro wrestling discussion. And since we've seen declines in both companies now, I think WWE is a little bit freaked out as well because they're seeing some numbers dips. Interest is just not there. They are not WWE and AEW too. They're both guilty of this, but WWE is not providing compelling must-see TV. They're just not. Nothing they are doing is compelling. What they're doing is fine, but fine isn't good enough. It needs to be great, it needs to be fun, it needs to be amazing. Same thing with AEW. Their shows are fine, but they need to be more than fine. AEW is still relying on the strength of their pay-per-views, which are always over-delivering. WWE is under-delivering, at least on the last one, but their TVs have still maintained solid ratings and tremendous attendance. But you can finally start to see that dipping a little bit. Now, in terms of the ratings, this might not all be their fault. This new methodology that Nielsen is using is affecting wrestling a little bit. And of course, we've talked about it until we're blue in the face, that ratings, and especially Nielsen ratings, don't mean jack shit at all. We are living in such a different era. And young fans today, they might not be old enough to remember how it was in cable. I had videotapes stacked from the floor to the ceiling of Monday Night Raws that I taped every week off of cable with my VCR. There was only one way to watch Monday Night Raw, Monday nights at 9 o'clock for 2 hours. That was it. You didn't get no replay on Tuesday morning. There was no YouTube to log on to and catch the highlights. You couldn't pull out your phone. If you did, it would be a cordless phone or a phone attached to the wall. You couldn't pull up your phone and scroll and see the results or see the highlights or DVR it or anything like that. You had to watch it there and there only. And a lot of fans, even myself included, who covers wrestling for a living, or for a partial living anyway, sometimes I just catch the highlights myself. I'm like, why do I need to watch the whole show? I understand how it all works. I know what's happening. I just need to write down the results and some of the tidbits, and that's all I need to see. So, I'm still watching the whole show, but just not sitting through it for 2 hours and all the commercials and stuff. So when you see 1.2 million people for SmackDown, but then you have on WWE's YouTube channel, you see more views on just a 9-minute clip than that. You can have 2 million views on just a clip that's 8 minutes long or a full segment or something like that. So you can see the numbers off of cable, on the internet, on YouTube. Look at the numbers that WWE's YouTube channel is doing. It doesn't feel like those ratings are really low. They're a hell of a lot more than 1.2 million people laid their eyes on SmackDown last week. Just like a hell of a lot more than 480,000 laid their eyes on Dynamite last week or this past week as well. Because there's other ways to watch it, namely Max, which isn't even factored into those fucking ratings. So you got to take all that in consideration, and the Nielsen changes, and with AEW going to streaming, WWE Raw going to Netflix, we've seen ourselves inching closer and closer to ratings just not mattering at all. And they largely don't to most fans. The only fans that really cling to the ratings are the tribals, because they're constantly looking for ammunition. They're constantly looking for things to whack off to, and they still operate with the mentality that's 1998, even though none of these little anger boys were even born back then. So the ratings don't matter. So, if WWE is worried about their rating, I think this is just, obviously, their media rights deals hinge on having good ratings. So you want to have good ratings, even cable ratings, even in an era and an age when you have 19 other ways to watch these things other than the nights they air. You still have to show good numbers, if you want to sign these big media rights deals. So how do you change that? You can't go backwards in technology. You got to make your shows good. And we've seen that wrestling can still draw strong ratings when the products are strong. When AEW is on fire, they can easily draw 1 million people for Dynamite. When WWE is on fire, they can easily draw 2.5 million people for SmackDown or Raw whenever they want. So they have the ability, we've seen that even in recent years, for really, really decent wrestling ratings to appear on cable. But right now, I think all these factors, the Nielsen changes, plus both companies not really providing that compelling of television at the moment. And also, this is always a down time of the year, is it not? I always think of September, October, November as just, and even December, these bottom 4 months of the year, I always feel like are just a little bit on the lackluster side. Never feels like we're seeing anything too must see. We're basically finishing out the year so we can head into WrestleMania season in January. And I think that this year is kind of no different. September and October are usually quieter months anyway for pro wrestling. You feel like you always hit this lull around this time, just like you do right after WrestleMania. So that all factors in. Once you get into the beginning of the year and you get into WrestleMania time, Royal Rumble time, WWE, I'm sure, will see an improvement on those numbers. But you can also feel the creative flatness in the company, and for Triple H being a better option than Vince McMahon, he absolutely is. But when you look back to that John Cena face turn, that was so incredibly phoned in and lazy. It makes you feel like they phone everything in. And I was under the belief that it would take Triple H a lot longer to get to this point. Eventually, he would turn into Vince McMahon because he's been trained basically by Vince McMahon. And some of the thought and detail they were putting into stuff doesn't feel like it's there right now. I feel like a lot of times in the writer's room, they're just saying stuff like, let's just do this. We got to fill these 2 hours. So let's just use this overly used trope or this template that we've used 19 times this month or whatever. And they don't put any real thought into it. It's almost as if they don't like their job. You got to enjoy this stuff. You got to enjoy sinking your teeth into a storyline and be able to write stuff out and create. And it just doesn't feel like anybody back there is creating. When we saw the footage of the WWE Unreal, it's just Triple H chewing on his ice, being like, I think it should be Punk. What do you guys think? I can fucking do that. You got to have some more creativity there. You guys got to really just be spitballing, coming up with ideas, and what's the fucking Charlie from Always Sunny with the meme, with the board and all the shit, you know what I mean? Like, you got to have all these ideas and like just hammer out ideas, bounce ideas off of each other. And it just feels like, why don't we just do this? It's so lazy, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be lazy. WWE's had plenty of opportunity to do better than what they did. And prior to WrestlePalooza, it was all, we're going to see surprises and all this great shit. I'm like, they're starting to figure out you can't just say shit. This isn't Fox News. You can't just say anything, and the dumbasses who watch you just believe it and slurp it up automatically. No, you have to deliver. And if you tell the world, we're going to see an industry-changing night on pay-per-view, and then you feed us a bunch of shit, ESPN's going to say so, and I'm glad they did. So... And AEW, same thing. Like, WrestleDream's going to be great, but Dynamite isn't going off the air with me itching for more Dynamite. As a matter of fact, that promo Moxley cut at the end of it on Wednesday wasn't even very good. I didn't even like it, even though I'm very, very much looking forward to the match. So I feel like AEW's TVs are a little similar to WWE. They don't seem so creatively empty as WWE's do, but they're not really providing a whole lot of compelling TV either. So you kind of seeing problems in both. But one thing that AEW does have going for it is that they always seem to deliver on pay-per-view. And I think with WWE's next PLE, I'm going to predict right now that Crown Jewel is going to be fantastic. I think WWE realizes that they can't bullshit, or at least cool it with the hyperbolic speak, So I think what WWE needs to do and will do is they are going to deliver a very solid show at Crown Jewel. Like I said, if it's only going to be 5 matches, and if the 5th match is in fact going to be Roman and Breakker, that's a pretty solid card. Cody Seth, Steph Tiff, Cena and AJ, Rhea and Io against the Kabooks, and then we got Roman and Breakker. That's a solid 5-match card right there that could very well deliver a terrific show in Australia in front of a jacked crowd in Perth. And then they're going to get rave reviews on ESPN. Andreas Hale is going to give them an A grade, and then on Raw, they're going to be like, Andreas Hale of ESPN, and they're going to rub themselves out over it. They're just going to whack off to it. Like, they're so offended by an honest review when they got a C grade, but now they're going to get a good one, and now they're going to smear it all over Monday Night Raw. And here's what he said, and here's what he said. They're so full of shit. So I don't think that the Nielsen story, what's changing there and how that's going to affect ratings, it doesn't matter to me. It might matter at the end of the day to WWE and AEW, especially as they are coming up on more media rights deals in upcoming years and things like that. But in terms of wrestling discourse and fans caring, I don't think fans have any business debating ratings. Ratings are a fraction, are just a part, a portion of the audience that watches wrestling. I work every single Wednesday night. I'm at work. I do not watch AEW. I watched it the next day on Max, on the replay. So I don't know how that factors in. I don't know where my view counts, but in all of my years of watching wrestling, and I've had cable TV now for about 40, I'd say 3 years, 42 years. I think we got cable in 1983. Because I remember getting a cable box, and one of the first things I watched as a kid was Casper the Ghost cartoon on whatever channel. I remember how weird our cable box looked, and and there was no remote. You had to walk up to it and change a channel. So that would have been like 1983. So we're going on 42 years that I have been watching wrestling. I have never been counted in the ratings. I've never been one of the millions to watch Raw or anything like that. I've never been counted. I've never had a Nielsen box, never gotten a Nielsen letter. Actually, I did recently get a Nielsen letter for the first time, but I don't even have cable, so who fucking cares? But none of my wrestling watching has ever been counted in any rating, ever. And I think there's a lot of fans like that. So think about all the different ways you can watch wrestling. Think about the way the ratings are derived. Only 450,000 or 80,000 watch Dynamite. No, 480,001 because I watched it, but I didn't watch it on cable. So think of how many more of me there are. How many more of me work on Wednesdays and watch the replay the next day, whether it be on HBO Max or just the highlights on YouTube, or maybe you just scroll Twitter to get an idea of what happened at the show. That counts. That shows you were interested. You checked out what happened. It's the same thing as just catching the highlights of a game instead of watching the whole game. If the game's over, why are you going to watch the whole game, all 4 quarters of the game, or all 9 innings, or all three periods, or all 2 halves? Why are you going to watch that? If you already know who won, just watch the highlights, watch all the slam dunks, skip all the bullshit. And that's what people do. That's what a lot of people do. So, ratings don't mean anything. They just don't mean anything, So if fans are excited that WWE has seen a ratings dip, it doesn't really mean anything. Millions of people still watch WWE. They're still pulling in 10, 12, 13,000 attendance for their SmackDowns and their Raws. They're doing fine, but you can see this stuff starting to dip. And like I've said before, ratings tend to go first before attendance. Because back in the Nitro days, when their product was just shit compared to WWE, they were still packing out the house, and it was a sea of NWO shirts. So WWE's attendance is going to continue to probably be solid for a little while longer, but you're going to see a decrease in that too. And I think next year is going to be a big test with WrestleMania and a lot of these ticket prices. And then, of course, we're going to be going into Saudi Arabia the year after that. And if WWE can't get its shit together creatively, I think they're going to see a serious decline next year, in their fan interest and their product. It doesn't mean WWE is going to go away, go out of business, or suffer, any sort of serious effects from this. The only thing we probably have to worry about as fans is them selling to the Saudis. WWE is not going to die or anything, but they might see a serious decline in just overall general interest. That's what happens in wrestling, and it's up to the companies, it's up to the Triple H's and the Tony Khans of the world to maintain that fan interest when you go through these hot periods, to maintain your hot period. And WWE has exhibited this arrogance, the things they say about the fans and the way they're pricing their tickets out and stuff. These are all super smart people. You would think way smarter than me or any of you in the chat, and yet they have this attitude as if they're in the middle right now of this permanent hot period when things are already cooling off, but they still think they're so untouchable. Just like the current government. You're already a year into this bullshit. It's not you're not gonna get to have him again in 2028. That's not gonna happen. He's too old and decrepit and fucked up. And they're walking around doing all this crazy shit, thinking that they're never gonna have to worry about another election again. And we are in a little bit of danger of that actually being a reality. I just really think at the end of the day, as stupid as this country is, sanity, will rear its head, and that's not going to be allowed to happen. And they're going to really pay for it in the elections with what they're doing and stuff. And I think WWE is going to pay for it with the fans, with this attitude, with this arrogance, with this, I don't know, just like kind of disgust for any sort of criticism or anything like that. Nope, we're great. La, la, la. We're the greatest. We're the greatest. We're the greatest. And Triple H says things like, I just wish fans could enjoy the show. I just wish they could shut up and enjoy the show. You're just telling us to enjoy something even if it sucks? Why would you say that? Shut up. Just enjoy it. Do what you're told. Excuse me? You're an entertainment company, you big-nosed idiot. It's my choice whether I just enjoy something or not, and I have every fucking right to criticize what I don't like. Just like I'll criticize what I don't like on AEW too. But Tony Khan isn't going out on his scrums and being like, I wish these idiot fans would shut the fuck up and just enjoy what I give them. He's not saying that. Why? Because that would make him a douchebag. That's why. And Triple H just comes off as a douchebag. Nick Khan comes off as a douchebag. Everybody in TKO comes off as one. And they're going to wind up selling to the Saudis. They are, and wrestling is going to suck. But in terms of the ratings and what it all means, to me, it personally means nothing. I don't give a shit. But it was one of the bigger stories this week. Meltzer had a whole big write-up on it in The Observer as well. You can check out his thoughts. His is more of just, kind of opinions. But if you really want the ins and outs of these ratings and of these numbers and these changes that the Nielsen system is undergoing right now, please click the WrestleNomics article in the description, and you can read all about that. All right, and that brings us now to our really fun AEW recap from this past Wednesday in Hollywood, Florida. The arena they were in held about 3,200 fans. It looked to be more like a theater. Because I believe was the hard cam where the entrance is, and then it faced straight ahead towards the announce desk, I think, on Dynamite. But this was a lot of fun because we had a big return on Dynamite that we all saw that we will talk about in a minute. But first, we've got to talk about the Broke Bucks. Now, the Broke Bucks got their money back, and I guess Matt was really excited to have this big, elaborate $500,000 entrance for Dynamite. And while this is like pre-filmed in the beginning of the day or something, and they think they were at a casino or whatnot. And while he's talking about all this, Nick is a little bit quiet. And I guess Nick pulled a Baron Corbin or a reverse Baron Corbin and went to Vegas or went to a casino and lost all of the money in a matter of minutes. So they then had a 6-man match to open up the show. It was the Bucks and Josh Alexander taking on Brodito and Kenny Omega. And the Bucks were introduced as the Broke Bucks. So I'm loving the Broke Bucks. I do like the angle that they're doing. It feels a lot like what they did with Corbin, but it's fun. I like their weird entrances every week and the highs and lows that the two guys are going through. It's making me interested in the Bucks again, which is nice. And this was a pretty fun match, pretty fun 6-man match, but it was all about the ending. Now, the ending was a victory for the babyfaces. Kenny Omega and Brodito won. One winged angel to Josh Alexander for the win. And as soon as the match is over, Brodito just leaves. They leave the ring, leaving Kenny Omega all by himself to get attacked by the heels who just lost. But Jurassic Express comes sauntering out. They're not in a big hurry, but Jurassic Express comes out there and runs off the Bucks. And Jack Perry got into it a little bit with Kenny Omega, but they came out there to basically make the save. And then they brawl with the Bucks off camera and, into the backstage area, leaving Kenny in the ring all alone again. And then the lights go out. And it's so funny, like the lights going out are a trademark of AEW. And when the lights went out, you got Excalibur going, "Oh, we got some sort of a power outage here." Like, how long have you been calling AEW? How long have you been calling their television shows? When the lights go out, somebody's going to be in the ring when they come back up. And I wish the announcers would just acknowledge that. Like when the lights go out, they go, "Oh shit, who's going to be in the ring when the lights come up?" And of course, the lights come up, and it's a man in a suit with a mask. And you can tell by the hair and the mask and the way he was standing who it is. Reveals the mask to show his face, and it is the returning Andrade. So Andrade is back. He attacks Kenny Omega, hits him with his finisher thing, whatever it's called. And, this is when Kenny is on the mic, by the way. After Kenny and the Bucks and Jurassic Express get ran off, Kenny gets on the mic and he does his good night bang thing, and that's when the lights go out. Andrade appears, attacks Kenny, hits him with his finisher, and then goes to the outside of the ring to join the Callis family. So I've been writing down the members, and I'm up to now 76 members of the Don Callis family. Yeah, I'm up to 76 members of the Don Callis family, and that now includes Andrade, El Idolo, who returns to AEW after leaving AEW. So he's the first guy now, because we knew we were going to get these type of firsts. The longer AEW is around, the more we're going to get jumping ship and jumping back ship and shipping and shit like that. So we've already seen plenty of people go from AEW, from WWE to AEW, back to WWE. Andrade's the first guy to go from WWE to AEW, back to WWE, back to AEW. And I love that. This is what wrestling is about. It's the closest thing. It reminds me of WCW and WWE. Andrade basically is Jarrett. He's Jeff Jarrett, because this is what Jeff Jarrett did. He went from WWE to WCW, and then he left WCW in 97, went back to WWE in 97, stayed there for 2 years, and then went back to WCW in 99. So he basically, Jarrett and Andrade, I think, are the only guys to do that. Well, Andrade's the first guy to do it. I'm trying to think if there's other Jarretts. There's lots of guys that went from WWE to WCW back to WWE. Lots of those guys. John Tenta, Big Boss Man. Fucking lots of guys. But nobody's done what Jarrett did, Like, Nash and Hall went from Nash and Hall went from WCW to WWE to WCW to back to WWE. So they kind of did it, working both places twice type of thing. But Andrade doing this is really cool, and he probably won't be the first one to do it. There's going to be more the longer AEW is around. So how long now has Andrade been gone? Has it been almost 2 years? I know his final match was at a World's End against Miro, right? So that wouldn't have been last year. It would have been the year before. So maybe that was World's End 2023. Do I have that right? Is that when his final match in AEW was against Miro? Now, Andrade left under less than wonderful circumstances, but Tony Khan still spoke very highly of him when he was asked, so it sounded like even though he wanted to go back to WWE, the relationship there was fine. So seeing him come back in is really exciting. I love these type of defections. Now, it has been reported over the past couple of weeks that Andrade was flat out fired from WWE, and word is he did fail a couple of wellness policy violations. He also went AWOL there. They couldn't get a hold of him, so he was fired without a no-compete. And I don't know anything about the situation at all. All we can do is speculate in our head. And I have a feeling, and I could be completely fucking wrong, but I have a suspicion that Andrade did this on purpose. Dave Meltzer, voiced his concerns this week about it. AEW already has a lot of talent. They don't need him. Well, you don't need him, but if you got a chance to sign someone like Andrade who's capable of being a main event player, just hasn't been able to figure it out in either company yet, sign him. And I love that they brought him back in. And I wonder if he just didn't like his time in WWE and he just said, fuck it, I'm going to get myself fired. Because otherwise, I have to wait out my contract or I have to get released and then wait out a 90-day. If I just get myself fired... And I'm wondering if it's actually possible that he purposely got himself fired. I don't know if he failed a wellness policy test. I don't know what that was, if he actually failed a test or if he refused to take one. If you refuse to take one, that's also a violation. So violation doesn't automatically mean he's on drugs. It just means he violated the wellness policy. That's all, which doesn't automatically mean that. So we don't really know for sure, but it does sound like it was wellness policy violation related, and that's what got him terminated. Now, it may have been a disappointment to him. Maybe he didn't want to leave WWE and he was very upset about his termination, and decided to go AEW. But I feel like in my heart of hearts, this is probably something that he orchestrated. I feel like that's a possibility. It might not be, but it feels like it all kind of lines up there. Andrade's different. He does things different ways, and he does things his way. And if he was able to say to himself, I want out, but I got 2 years left on my deal. I don't want to wait that out. I don't want to ask for my release and then have to fight them on it. And then they just hold me hostage. I'm just going to fail some wellness tests, get myself fired. There's another company out there I can just go to tomorrow. They'll hire me back. Tony Khan likes me. And Tony Khan brought him in. Was it a mistake to bring him in? I don't think so, but that remains to be seen. If Andrade gets to AEW and he's a huge fucking menace backstage and we're hearing about issues with him, showing up late, getting into fights. He's already been in one fight back there with, Sammy Guevara, right? Sammy Guevara's been in so many fights with a lot of guys. So if we start hearing stories of Andrade being a problem backstage, then yeah, we'll say it was probably a mistake to bring him back in. But these are the type of things as a fan that I love. I love to see defections and guys jumping because Andrade was a pretty big surprise. When he stood in the ring, he had his back turned to a lot of the fans, and you could see the fans in the crowd. One guy was going, "Is that Andrade? Is that Andrade?" And then he pulls off his mask. He got a great pop. It was cool. So I like to see that stuff. I never reject it, and I'm happy that Andrade is back in AEW. And if he did find a way to wiggle his way out of that deal, props to him, man. I'm so sick of these wrestling companies having these wrestlers by the balls, adding injury time to their contracts. Tony Khan and Triple H both do this, and holding guys out when it doesn't matter. If they want to go, just let them fucking go. No guy is going to make or break a company at this point. So, AEW has lost Cody and Punk, they're still floating. WWE can lose anybody. It doesn't matter. They're too strong. Nails are dug in too deep. they're not going anywhere. So, like, what's the difference if you just release a guy or not, or let him go or whatever? So if wrestlers are starting to come up with more creative ways to get out of their deals, I'm wondering if it's going to be like, it's that deal in wrestling, where if you get yourself intentionally disqualified, you lose the title. They might start writing stipulations like that into contracts. Like if we believe, that you got yourself intentionally fired, then we reserve the right to add a no compete to your deal. I don't know how legal stuff works, but if this is something that wrestlers are going to start to use to get out of stuff, precautions might be made in contracts to prevent this from happening again. But the whole thing could be completely legit. It could be Andrade being perfectly happy in WWE. He didn't want to go anywhere, but he made a couple of mistakes and they fired him. And now his only choice is to go back to AEW. But I feel like it might be the opposite. It might be that he just didn't want to be there. And plus, I don't remember how the timeline matched or how these events lined up, but it felt like as soon as he got back to WWE, that's when we heard about the divorce from him and Charlotte. So it might just be that, maybe it's like, I don't want to, I'm on the same brand with my ex-wife. It's just a little weird. I'm not getting pushed anymore. She's a higher spot than me. She's got a bigger legacy in this company than me. And, even though we might be on good terms, it's just a little weird. I wouldn't want to go into work tonight and work with my ex, even though we're not on bad terms or anything. I just wouldn't want to work with her. It's just weird, so maybe it's something like that. Maybe Andrade is just, he feels like he'd be better outside of WWE and he knows that he'll not be able to get out of his contract. So he got himself fired. I mean, it's kind of the same thing as what Tony Storm did, didn't it? What did Tony Storm do? Didn't Tony Storm Tony Storm and Jeff Hardy? Why do I feel like they're very similar? I feel like Tony Storm and Jeff Hardy both just left the ring and left the WWE, right? Did they just walk out and say, I'm done here. I'm done. Jeff Hardy, his thing was like a house show match, right? And he just, during the match, he just walked through the crowd and left. And fans were like, I think he got himself intentionally fired. And Tony Storm might have done the same thing. I don't know. So, if wrestlers are coming up with creative ways to get out from somewhere where they don't want to be, I commend them for that. So Andrade is now back in AEW. He's now a member of the 76-member Callis family. And we will see if Andrade can see more success than he has in his 2 WWE stints and his 1 AEW stint so far, plus his NXT run. So far, the most success he's seen has been in NXT. So hopefully it can be different for him this time around. I wish Andrade the best. I like Andrade. And he's one of those guys that I can't understand why neither company can figure it out for him. He's too good. He's too good. We had a really cool big 6th anniversary video package as well on Wednesday night, which showed Cody Rhodes and CM Punk. Cody Rhodes was doing the thing with the mirror. Was it with Brody King? I forgot what that was when Cody was like looking in the mirror or through the glass backstage, and then they showed Punk and Sting with Punk having the Sting paint on. I thought that was pretty cool. We had Kyle Fletcher defeating Orange Cassidy on Wednesday night. This was a TNT title match. It was supposed to be Kyle Fletcher versus Hologram, but Hologram was injured on the previous Collision, and they've been running that clone angle as well on Collision. Well, during this match, you have Hologram coming out there to interrupt, but you could tell it's hard as they did something wrong here. Something was off about this whole thing. It didn't feel right. First of all, Orange Cassidy had a glitch in his entrance. He had this like media offline red screen in a bunch of different languages come up. It felt like that was an accident. It wasn't part of his silly little low budget entrance. So he had that happen. Then during the match, you have this hologram looking guy come out, but you can clearly see right off the bat, it's not him. He's bigger. And he comes out there and Orange Cassidy is on the top rope and he shoves Cassidy off the top rope. This is his conglomeration cohort, right, who just turned on his partner. But nobody in the building and nobody at home thought that this was the real hologram because we already knew he got injured. And so now you have this lookalike come out and they're already running this clone thing on Collision. So obviously that's what it's going to be about, right? He pushes Orange Cassidy off the top rope, allowing Fletcher to hit his crazy-ass brainbuster on the top turnbuckle thing, finisher for the win, beats Orange Cassidy and retains the TNT title. And then Hologram shows up on stage and joins the Callis family and then rips off the costume to reveal that he's the clone. So I still can't tell if they're making this an actual clone, like in a lab he was cloned, or if he was cloned and doesn't know it. Maybe like he really thinks he's hologram, but the way he tore everything off makes you think that he knows he's the clone. A clone storyline in wrestling, I don't even know how this is going to work. There was a movie with Michael Keaton in the 90s, Duplicity or something. Not Duplicity, Multiplicity, where there's like 6 Michael Keatons. And that was a hokey-ass movie. So I don't know how this is going to translate to pro wrestling or other. There's probably been cloning in superhero movies and stuff, like the Spider-Man thing. But I don't know. It just came off hokey. And hokey isn't always bad. I like hokey because I prefer hokiness in my wrestling, but sometimes you can tread into a territory that's maybe a little bit over the hokey line for me, and this kind of was. So I liked the match. Fletcher and OC was totally fun, but the hologram clone reveal thing, it felt like they shit the bed and it was not properly executed. Am I making this up, or did you guys feel the same way when you watched that? I couldn't even tell what was bugging me about it, but the whole execution of everything felt off. And even Excalibur, oh my God, it's the clone, like acting all surprised. I'm like, bitch, don't you watch Collision? I barely watch Collision and I know what's going on over there. So it's the same thing with the lights going out. Oh, we must have a power outage here. Must be a power outage. What the fuck are you talking about? A power outage, you idiot. So anyway, Fletcher over OC with help from the clone. Mercedes Moné is eyeing up those tag team titles. She did an interview with Renee Paquette where she talked about being a former tag team champion, as she is, and that she might be interested in finding a tag team partner to go after the tag team titles. And that's when she's interrupted by Harley Cameron, who's got a little puppet Monet, and she wants to be a partner with Mercedes, but Mercedes wants nothing to do with it and rejects it. And Harley is supremely talented. I love her. And I mentioned on Tuesday when we talked about the AEW women's tag team titles is that I wanted that to be hopefully primarily team focused with not so much of the two singles wrestlers slapped together thing going on that we see so much in WWE and we've seen so much through the years. But it is okay to do a little bit of that. Like I want Chris Statlander and Willow to team up, and Mercedes teaming up with someone like Harley Cameron could be a lot of fun, especially if it's an odd couple thing and they win the titles. You can create some fun stories there. So I'm not completely against that at all. I just don't want it to all be that way. I need it to be a mixture of having some good, solid wrestling tag teams in your division that hold the belts for the majority of the time, and then every now and then you bring in a couple of single stars as a team to give them something to do or give them belts to win or use it to further storylines or whatever. And like I really, really ranted about hard on Tuesday, it's incredibly important for Tony Khan to make sure that he is different, that his women's tag team division is different from WWE's, because if it resembles what WWE is doing at all, it's going to fail before it starts. Because WWE's tag team division is shit, and the last thing you want to do is emulate that. So you have a chance here to create women's tag team championships that actually mean something in a division that's actually fun to watch, and a division that's just not there as a nuisance and an obligation for you to do things, and because that's where creativity can really fall through the cracks when you look at something as just a creative obligation. Oh, we have to do this, so let's just do this. Phone it in, as it were. No, sink your teeth into it. I suggested putting a head female writer in charge, but people are like, Tony Khan will never give up, or whatever. So I'm like, they got their hate boner going on. But I'm like, on Tuesday, I laid it all out. I'm like, Tony, just have this person report to you. Have them run the division, write most of the storylines, and then bring it all to you. What do you think, sir? Here's what I have planned. Do you approve it? And if you don't approve it, change what you want. If you do, let's go out there. But I don't see why that would be such a bad thing. So if Mercedes is going to be maybe eyeing up a partner, her and Harley Cameron, and you add the puppet, could be fun. We'll see. We had Hangman Page. Okay, so we were wondering on Tuesday, the night before Dynamite, when we were up here for the big podcast, I didn't know what Hangman Page was going to do at WrestleDream. He felt like he was a champion without a challenger. And I'm like, who's he going to face? I don't even know. Well, we know now, because Hangman Page teamed up with the Ops, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Samoa Joe. They took on the Death Riders. And they basically do a finish where Hobbs is getting worked over in the ring. He makes the hot tag to Hangman and Joe, who both have their hands out. He hot tags Hangman, who maybe got in there and stole it a little bit from Samoa Joe. Hangman goes nuts in the ring, kicks everybody's ass, hits Claudio with the buckshot lariat, and gets the win. After the match, he's happy. He's celebrating. He grabs the trios titles. He gives one title to Hobbs, and he goes and gives the other title to Samoa Joe. But when he gives the title to Samoa Joe, he's just so caught up in the moment, he doesn't realize what he's doing. He slams it into Samoa Joe's chest, the belt, and the belt falls. But Hangman just keeps going on what he's doing. He's celebrating, and I really liked that. I liked the way that was set up. And then Joe was like, what the fuck, bro? And then Hangman's like, what? You slam it into my chest? And they start getting in each other's face. And so they're pushing, they're shoving. Hobbs is trying to be peacemaker here. Later on, you go backstage where Hangman is being interviewed, and he puts over Joe for all his help and how great Joe was. But at the same time, he says that if Joe throws another fit like that, he will ruin his life. So on one hand, I was getting a little bit, I know they're kind of friends on storyline right now, but I didn't like, sometimes when there's a match of mutual respect, I don't like all the ass kissing. And so Hangman was talking Joe up a little bit too much for me. For two guys that just had a heated conversation, I felt like he was giving him a little too much praise, even though everything he was saying was true. But then at the end, he said, if you ever throw a fit like that again, I will ruin your life. And we know what Hangman Page is capable of when it comes to ruining lives. This motherfucker will burn your house down, literally. Like literally burn down your home. He's done it before. So Joe better watch his shit. Later on, Joe accepts the offer. And now it's official. Hangman Page defending the AEW World title against Samoa Joe at WrestleDream. I love that match. I think it's going to be a great match. I think Hangman's going to win, obviously, but it's going to be a great match. And I just found out something, was it yesterday or the day before? WrestleDream on October 18th. I can't be off for. I have to work. I was going to be off, and then I'm sitting in the office, and our events coordinator writes a fresh one up on the board for me. Saturday, October 18th, 50 people. David Justice, former baseball player who comes into my restaurant all the time. He's bringing 50 people in for dinner. And so I was like, oh, I guess I won't be off. So unfortunately, guys, I am required for a party of that size. I got to be there. I can't be at home watching wrestling and expect those yahoos to take care of David Justice. So I got to be there for that. So unfortunately, I'm going to miss WrestleDream. We're not going to be here for a watch along. I'm sorry about that. But I'll probably be here for a review the next day or something. Or maybe we can watch it on Sunday. I don't know. We won't do that. But anyway, I'm not going to be here on the 18th for WrestleDream, and that's kind of a bummer. But the silver lining is that I'm glad that we have a match like Hangman and Samoa Joe. I'm bummed out that I'm going to miss it, but I don't feel like it's going to result in a title change here. I think Hangman's going to retain, and, WrestleDream will probably be somewhat similar to what All Out was. A great show, or a good show, but maybe not the greatest. We'll see. But either way, I'm going to have to miss WrestleDream, but I will find a way to make that up to you guys. And maybe David Justice calls and cancels his group, and I won't be there, or he won't be coming in. But as of right now, I'm going to miss WrestleDream. Sorry about that. Toni Storm on Dynamite defeated Ty Mello. And then after the match, she cuts a promo on Chris Statlander, basically saying, without the title, what is she? And she wants a shot at the title, and Statlander agrees to give her one in a later on interview backstage, and she accepts the offer for WrestleDream. So Toni Storm versus Chris Statlander now for the title is set for WrestleDream. That's fun. We had Gates of Agony. They defeated Blake Christian and Lee Johnson. After the match, Hurt Syndicate came out and challenged Ricochet, who was on commentary, and the Gates of Agony to a street fight next week in Jacksonville at Daly's Place. So it'll be Gates of Agony and Ricochet versus the Hurt Syndicate next week. Also next week, backstage, we set up another big tag team match. Brodito is going to be challenged by Takeshita and Okada. So Callis is back there with the two of them backstage, and he challenges, I guess, Brodito, or announces that they're going to have a match with Brodito next week. He didn't say anything about this being a tag team title match, so I don't know if it is or not. I think it is. So that's going to be the tag match, and I'm really, really loving the tension between Takeshita and Okada. I like it. It's fun, And I can't wait for that showdown to actually happen because I'm hoping Takeshita is the one that takes that title off of Okada. So their dynamic is fun between the two and how long they've been kind of at odds and posturing to be the alpha male in the Callis family. And Callis is also getting his own kicks out of this, seeing his own guys kind of compete against each other. So next week, I'm sure Takeshita and Okada will not be able to coexist, and Brodito will wind up getting the win there next week. That's my prediction anyway. In the main event of Dynamite on Wednesday, it was a mixed tag, Darby Allin and Chris Statlander defeating Wheeler Yuta and Marina Shafir. What was the stipulation in this? Because it was like an anything goes. Was it just a tornado tag? I think it was a tornado tag. Yeah, it was a tornado tag. So tornado tag, anything goes. And the craziest spot was when they got out the thumbtacks and Marina Shafir gets basically atomic dropped onto the thumbtacks, and she has no shoes on. She is barefoot. And Statlander lifts her up and slams her feet first onto the tacks. Ouch. And just to hear Taz on commentary goes, that sucks. Yeah, that sucks. That's just not a bump I would want to take. Tacks in your feet. What do you think was worse? Marina Shafir taking that thumbtacks, or Marv coming in on Home Alone when he comes through the window and lays down his bare feet on the Christmas ornaments? Like, that just sucks. So in the end, it's the babyfaces getting the win. Darby and Stat get the win. Coffin drop to Wheeler Yuta, who's being choked out by his own partner because after poor Marina slams her feet into the tacks, she then gets powder thrown in her face by Wheeler Yuta, the fucking idiot. And she's blinded and winds up locking Wheeler Yuta in a chokehold, thinking that she's got Darby or Statlander or something. And then Statlander comes off the top rope with a 450. And then coffin drop from Darby onto Yuta for the win. So Tony Storm came out there and started brawling, or started a confrontation with Statlander. They needed to be pulled apart. And Darby then continues the attack on Wheeler Yuta until Pac shows up. Pac shows up, takes out Darby Allin. Then Mox gets on the mic and basically vows to make Darby say, I quit. He says something like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to make sure at WrestleDream you say I quit. So the fact that he's saying that, I don't know how I'm going to do it, do you think he's going to pull some sort of like Royal Rumble 1999 shit and have like a recording of Darby saying I quit like Rock did with Mick Foley, or what's he going to have up his sleeve here? Darby isn't currently attached to anyone in storyline on television, other than maybe Statlander, who he tagged with, and of course Sting, who's no longer on TV. So, I mean, I guess if the Death Riders went to Sting's house, Sting's son also, incidentally, made his in-ring debut over the past couple of days. So maybe if it's something to do with Sting's family, like when Mox is about to lose the match and Darby's about to make him say I quit, and then Darby points to the Tron, and they show the rest of the Death Riders at Sting's house holding him hostage with a baseball bat to his face or something like that, and you say I quit right now or we cripple your mentor. And they did the same finish in WWE when it was Triple H and was it Rock or something like that, and they got Chyna in the ring, and they're like, say I quit or we're going to tear our arms off, and then he said he quits. So it might have to be something like that, but Mox is going to have a trick up his sleeve if he expects to beat Darby, because Mox won it all out, right? How did I forget that already? I feel like Mox won theirs. He's got to lose this one. Yeah, he lost the coffin, or he won the coffin match, right? They slammed Darby in it. So I feel like he's losing here. Mox is going to lose here. So here's what we got for Collision going on tonight. So tonight, Collision's already on. I believe Collision is already on. I believe this is a 7 Eastern, 4 p.m. start time. I believe this was taped on Thursday. You're going to see Death Riders versus Jay Lethal, Adam Priest, and Tommy Billington. Face-to-face between Tony and Stat. We've got a 6-man tag involving the Paragon and Orange Cassidy and some Callis family members there. Also, Jamie Hayter taking on Anna Jay. We got Kevin Knight versus one member of FTR. Hopefully it's Stokely. And we've got Eddie Kingston taking on Dralistico. We also have M&M TV casting call and Sammy Guevara and Roosh in action tonight on Collision, which I believe is airing as we speak. So sorry that I'm going a little bit head-to-head for that. And here's what we have now for WrestleDream. 3 matches now. We have Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin in the I Quit match, Chris Statlander versus Tony Storm or for the AEW Women's title, and Hangman Page versus Samoa Joe. So there you go. In a nutshell, that is your WrestleDream so far. And we'll probably get 6 more matches added to that. All right, well, I got to get out of here in a minute, but let me scroll back to the chat here and knock out some supers that I did see. Okay, NXT call-ups for War Games. That's cool. Hey, Nick Musser, good to see you. Terry Allen, appreciate the 226. Wished Britt appeared Wednesday or later year. Yeah, they had the Dynamite in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago. No Britt Baker. I feel like Britt Baker's done. She should do a promotion deal. Like she should do, like she already has an endorsement deal with DraftKings or something because I see her on social media plugging that all the time. But she should do something with Diet Mountain Dew. Britt Baker, DMD. Why haven't they done that? Put her pretty face on a Diet Mountain Dew bottle? I guess she's a dentist. She probably discourages the consumption of Diet Mountain Dew, but I think it would work. No, I did not see The Rock and Dave LaGreca meet in Bustin' Open Radio. No, I did not. I do not like Dave LaGreca. He's a fucking blowhard. I don't give a shit about him, and I don't listen to their podcast. Fucking can't stand Bully Ray. Yes, I love that movie. There was a gay, stupid, and manly version of Keaton. That's right. There was all different ones. That was great. Good to see you, Juliet. Hooking up Techno Nerd Gaming with a channel membership. Thank you for that, the Juliet. You're the best. Well, it is getting down to the bottom of the hour now, guys, so I got to bail out of here. So sorry for kind of the lack of material for this podcast, but we were here for 2.5 hours just on Tuesday catching up on everything. So I knew that pretty much just left us with SmackDown, with Dynamite, Crown Jewel, WrestleDream, and anything else we wanted to talk about. So thanks for hanging out with me today, but I got to get up out of here now. Don't forget, join us tomorrow. We're going to be here. No Mercy, 1999. Watch along. We'll be live at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Hopefully, this will not interfere with anybody's Sunday night football festivities, but we'll probably eyeball that game as well, wherever I can figure out to turn it on. So anyway, you guys have a great rest of your Saturday. Thanks again for being here. If you don't mind smashing the thumbs up button on the way out the door. And I will be catching you guys tomorrow night for No Mercy 99. Can't wait. Peace.